It is time for State of the Nation. We're getting a feel of where Kenya is at this particular point. A lot has been happening. The teachers are on strike. The Standard 8 Form 4 candidates have their exams coming up, national exams. Difficult time for them not to have their teachers in class for public schools. So we'll be talking about that as well as many other stories, and we'd like you to engage with us. My Twitter handle will be on your screen. Sophia Wanuna is where you can find me. If you have a question, any contribution, feel free to engage with us. We'd love to hear from you this morning. Always a delight to get a sense of what your feel is. If you agree with my panelists this morning, if you disagree, let us hear your voice as well. Joining me in studio today is Moses Kajwang. He's the Homa Bay Senator. Also with us after a while is Richard Onyonka. He's Member of Parliament, Kitutu Chache South. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
It is good to see you.
Good morning.
Where have you been? It's been
a
while.
I've been around. I've been working.
Moses comes to our studio a lot. You don't.
No, I've been around, but you had to invite me.
Okay. You would have just protested and said, now I just need to come. You're keeping well?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
You're keeping well?
I'm well. I'm
yeah.
fine, yes.
What to Kitutu Chache?
Okopoa.
Okopoa.
Yeah.
That is good to hear.
Okay.
Let's start off with what's happening currently. Teachers have said it's official. They're on strike. The government continues to say, first, the strike is illegal, should not be happening. But number two, that they don't have money. And the teachers have the courts agreeing with them, saying, you know what, pay up. It's about that time. Appears your party as well came out to say government should pay up as well. And many people going to their corner, including court to even saying that they'll get other unions to come and back that push. So I'll start with you, Onyonka.
Yes.
Is government being unreasonable on this one? Shouldn't they just get money and just pay up?
I think to me it's not even a matter of being unreasonable. I think the government just needs to be fair. This is a matter that has taken very many years. Teachers have been waiting for the last 20 years to get paid. It is the Teacher Service Commission which actually brought the case to court. And in fact, it is the Teacher Service Commission that asked for the 50-60. TSC, NAT and KUPPET were, at the time when this case came up, were asking for 200%. They went to the labor court. Essentially, the judge made a ruling and said, let us agree with TSC because they're the employer. If they have asked for 50-60, let's give it to the teachers. Once he gave that ruling from the labor court, TSC went to Court of Appeal, which then they went and said, no, 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 we are not able to do this. And the Court of Appeal ruled and said, no, we agree with what the lower court had done. So for me, the government and indeed Parliament and all of us who are in the leadership must come up, sit down and agree how to pay teachers. I don't think we have any other option out. Right now we look like we are being completely irresponsible.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I also argue you do that and you open a can of worms. Then everybody, you know, it becomes Pandora's box for the government. Do you understand where they're coming from? Do you get their side of the argument?
Sophia, that argument doesn't hold. It will be impunity if the government decides to defy court orders. The court has pronounced itself very clearly on this particular matter. It did not just drop at the Supreme Court. It has gone through the other lower courts to get to the point where the matter went to the Supreme Court. But remember, since 1997, that is the last time that teachers got a negotiated increase, which there has been problems in implementation. 1997 is a long time ago, where when many of our viewers were probably still in primary school. I was a teacher at that time in 1997. And I still remember the time when teachers got that substantial increment during the Moi days.
Right.
From 1997 to date, teachers have not had the increment that they deserve. Annually, the government budgets to increase employee salaries by 4% to adjust for inflation. In the private sector, it's usually much more generous. It could be 10% or 11%, mostly in the corporate sector. Teachers have not benefited from this in the last 18 years. And that is why a reasonable increment came to the 50-60%, because if you take 4% per annum for this number of years, it comes to the 50-60%, unlike the 300% that teachers had asked for initially. So it is very reasonable. And if there was any other employee in the public sector who has suffered a similar fate, that in the last 18 years, their salaries have not even been adjusted to cater for inflation, then they've got a case. It is not an issue of Pandora's box.
We've had it said that if they get this increment, then they will be getting more than others in the public sector on the same job groups.
It is, there's something SRC has been talking about called job evaluation. And rationalization, which has taken forever. But you don't need to be a rocket scientist to attempt to estimate the worth of a teacher's job. Teachers play a very, very significant and a very, very important role in this country. At the end of the day, there will never be absolute parity when it comes to remuneration. Sophia, you and fellow presenters, you'll find certain differences even in your remuneration.
Yeah.
And that comes as a result
there are hundreds of thousands of them.
Yes, yes. And so you cannot begrudge the teachers their right to that increment simply because there are other people also who are downtrodden. You do not take away from somebody so that you can make them equal to someone down there. You do not reduce, you do not take away their right. The bottom line is that the government has got no option but to pay teachers. What I would love to see is not all these heroics or these accountants we are hearing in setting up a cabinet and getting an accountant and making him the Minister for Finance. You know, he's aloof, he's unaware of the political implications of some of the things he's saying. He's speaking like a typical accountant, that I have no money.
Isn't that his job? Isn't he supposed to be politicizing issues or telling you what is happening and what he can and cannot do?
Let me tell you, Sophia, what I would have expected the Cabinet Secretary to be saying. He would be discussing with Parliament, with the Budget Committee. Let us try and find a solution. Unfortunately, it has not come to the public domain that is doing that. All he has said is that we have no money, and if we are to pay you, we shall increase taxes, or we shall reduce money that goes to counties, which is a constitutional impossibility. He's misleading this country. He's trying to paint a picture that if we pay teachers an additional salary, then everyone else will suffer and taxes will go up. That is wrong. He should be offering solutions rather than just giving us the accountancy speak.
Perhaps there will be discussions in terms of the Parliamentary Committee on Education, because we had invited Sabina Chege, who's the chair for the show, and she said this morning she's unable to make it because they are meeting to figure out the way forward. So you think as well the Cabinet Secretary being insincere as far as saying there is simply no money?
I think for me, you know, the very interesting thing about Kenya is that what is priority and what is relevant is usually put in the back burner. It's very simple. I can assure you, I am not the Minister for Planning, but I can assure you that if I was to sit down with the budget that we just passed, there are certain departments you can cut.
Correct.
You can just cut. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm sure you've seen, if you look at the papers last year when we were sitting down and discussing about last year's budgets, we were spending about 6 billion shillings to buy flowers for government offices. We have got money that is being allocated and that is being actually the money is allocated, and you'll find that 60% of the ministries do not actually, they don't have the absorption capacity of utilizing the funds which we are allocating them. And the question then becomes, why are we allocating money to ministry departments and government departments that are not able to absorb the money that we give them? And my argument has always been, if we take the money that, even without increasing taxes, like my brother here said, you don't have to increase taxes. You do not have to actually take money from certain departments unilaterally. What we are saying is, the Minister for Finance, the Budget Committee in Parliament, and other departments can be summoned. We can sit down in Akamkunji and discuss and say, out of the budget that we allocated, what is it that is not really critically necessary? And we can cut, and we'll pick out $20 billion shillings, which we can give teachers.
Parliament across the political divide, being insincere in that they could be getting in these conversations at some point to ensure that we don't have this crisis. Yes, now it's at a point where it's a face-off pretty much between both sides. But is there more that you representatives of the people could be doing in the House to ensure teachers get more?
For me, I think like right now, I really blame my colleagues. I mean, this is a national crisis. The teacher's salary has nothing to do with the executive per se. If you remove the presidency and say, oh, we can dump that on the president and forget about it. The truth is, it is Parliament. You're looking at National Assembly. The Senate has to come in. We are looking at the revenue allocation bill, which the Senate has a responsibility to handle in terms of how much money is going to the county government and what we need to do. If you look, I mean, right now it will be nearly impossible, like my brother has said, to reverse the money that you've given to the counties. But look at what is happening. The amount of money that is being spent, if you tally all the 47 counties and see how much money members of the county assemblies and the governors are using for traveling. Traveling to go and discuss what? I mean, the proposals, the strategies, the policy papers on what Kenya needs exists in government departments for the last 20 years. We already have everything that we need to do in this country. But how much are we using? It's not even the MCAs only. Look at members of parliament. I mean, I know my colleagues may not be happy with this, but if you look at how many trips we are making outside this country, I mean, people are traveling to go and discuss how to handle garbage collection. I mean, surely. Garbage collection, we've known Nairobi City can handle garbage collection. We have got papers which have been written, approved by JICA and other international organizations. The Italian government has been planning how to handle garbage collection in the city of Nairobi. What happens? People still make trips. I mean, you have people going to Israel to go and find out how you can have livestock development and produce more milk. Yeah. I mean, the truth is, these are things which Kenyans know how to do. So if leadership in this country was being reasonable and honest with the issue of dealing with injustices in terms of, for example, the salary of the teachers, we can deal with it. We underpay our nurses, the truth is, and doctors. It is known. That is why we are having many of these people running away. And yet we can afford it.
So do you agree that that blame should be shared across the board, or should it still stick with the executive on this issue of the teachers particularly? Being
a national crisis, national problem, I think there's some collective blame. Of course, there is where the buck stops, and the buck stops with the executive in this particular matter. But yes, there are things we can do to make sure that we free up funds so that we can take care of our labor force and our human resource. My brother has talked about wastage. And wastage, many of these benchmarking trips, they were conceived before the internet came. Nowadays, you don't need to go to
There's times I'm going to learn how to use an iPad. There were some MCAs who
you can just go to Wikipedia and get all the information you need, and you can do it from
Yego.
I mean, if it's true that you learned how to throw a javelin from YouTube and not hunting other things, you can do so much from the internet. So we can cut down on wastage. That is number one. Number two, we can cut down on corruption. Corruption also costs this country a lot of money. We can be more efficient. I can tell you now, Sophia, this country, there's no money flowing. Why? Because the government is not paying suppliers, the government is not paying employees, county governments are not paying employees. And we know the government is the biggest employer in this economy, and it is the biggest purchaser of services and products in this economy. Since the financial year was closed, the story has been that IFMIS has been closed, and that Treasury still does not have money, or Treasury has not sent money to the line ministries so that these line ministries can pay the service providers. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that if you supply a product or a service to somebody who's going to pay you 6 months down the line, it will be twice as expensive. If you walk to a shop and buy a motor vehicle, and someone else comes there, buys it, and pays for it 6 months later, as the owner of that vehicle, I'll sell it to him twice the price, because it's that time value of money. So if we become more efficient, even the government can be able to procure goods and services at maybe 2/3 the price that it currently procures them. So corruption, wastage, efficiency, all these are things that we can clamp. But this issue right now on the table, which the Supreme Court has said very clearly, teachers to be paid. And we must find a solution to paying these teachers. There are certain areas where we allocated monies. And I keep saying that the NYS, when we got the budget policy statement, which is a requirement under the law, NYS had been allocated 5 billion. When the final budget was done, NYS had 25 billion Kenya shillings. There are certain things we do arbitrarily in this nation. We said we are going to build a wall between Kenya and Somalia and Ethiopia. We still don't know how many billions that wall is going to cost us. Those are things that we do not have to do some knee-jerk reactions. We can save a lot of money, and through those savings, we can pay our teachers. The solution to this crisis, what we need to see the Cabinet Secretary doing is coming to the Budget Committee of the National Assembly and to the relevant committees and sitting down and locking themselves up just one day and ask him, how do we reallocate, how do we jig things? Rotich says that moving money from one vote to the other is not possible until mid-year. I think that is hot air.
You can do it through supplementary.
You can do it through supplementary, and you can get an early view of some of the things that you're not going to achieve, because the budget process is started fairly early, and at this point we can clearly tell the things that we'll not be able to achieve or that we'll not be able to absorb in the next financial year.
There are those who argue, Mheshimiwa, that at the end of the day, this also has to be looked at in the context of so they're being paid, but look at the education sector, the bigger picture. It appears to not be working in as far as producing people that will take this country forward. You look at members of parliament like yourselves, many of you will not have your children in public school. So is it time also to have that conversation as far as, is this even working? We are paying them, but there's so many issues being raised in as far as what the students are learning, what they can be able to do at what level, absentee issues of the teachers.
Thank you. I think for me, of course it sounds like a catch-22 situation, but I want to be very clear to you. The truth is, it has taken 20 years for these teachers to negotiate their salaries. Remuneration of any employee is definitely going to determine how the employee performs. And for some of us, the arguments we are making are that it has reached a time where let us fix the issue of the teachers' salaries, then we can demand excellence from them. In other words, we can't use the fact that the teachers, there's absenteeism, or the teachers do not perform, they are not signing performance contracts, they have been behaving badly, if that's what you want to call it, and as a result, therefore, we don't need to pay them. Some of our arguments we are making are, let us settle this injustice by making sure that we own up. Let us make sure the teachers get their salaries. Then after that, we can now stand up and face them and say, if you are being paid according to your expectations, then we expect you to sign performance contracts, we expect you to give us the results we need. This argument for me comes, for example, when I became an MP and I started working, trying to figure out how I could improve performance in my constituency. And to be honest with you, it took me close to 1 year, I think 2008 up to 2009, making a lot of noise saying how the teachers are useless, they're not able to perform. In fact, I don't even understand why my constituency is lagging behind. And the teachers called me and said, can you please listen to us? Go around our schools and look at what we have. There is no infrastructure. Look at the classrooms. There's water raining into the classrooms. We don't have desks. We don't have electricity. How do you expect me to perform? Which genius methods do you want me to use to produce this? Some of the kids come to school, they have not eaten. Right now in Kenya, we should be discussing about school feeding programs, because many of our parents are very poor. You find the child ate last night. So by the time the child comes to a public school on a Monday morning and he ate on Sunday evening, it is impossible for this child to concentrate. So the arguments we are making are, let us fix some of the issues which will then make it possible for us to demand for excellence and performance from the teachers. Yes.
So you hope going forward on this particular issue that the government will budge, pay these teachers and close this chapter?
Yeah, Sophia, it's not even a badging, it's not an arm wrestling thing.
It's a moral responsibility.
It is just respecting the courts, and the judiciary is what prevents us from tottering into a dictatorship, and we must respect the judiciary. Sophia, allow me also to chip in, and because you've raised a very important point, that it is not just about salaries. That alone will not fix the education sector. We must also go back and ask ourselves, are we providing the right infrastructure at the primary and secondary school level to ensure that these teachers, now you paid them well, they go into a room where there is a proper blackboard and there's chalk, and the children are also comfortable and they're not sitting in a dusty classroom with jiggers. Free primary and secondary education is one of the most significant policy decisions that this country has ever made. And it is something irreversible. It is something that every government that comes in must support. We must think of increasing our allocation to the education sector so that the money is not gobbled up by salaries. The money goes into equipping these schools, providing them with the right infrastructure, with the right conditions through which students can thrive. But still, going back to corruption, and it is surprising how corruption is eating this country. Sophia, today, if you went to a teacher training college and you have been certified, for you to join the TSC, to be admitted as a teacher, to get onto the TSC payroll, you have to pay 70,000 shillings. You have to bribe to join the TSC. And that is a reality. When I got into the Senate, I came across many young people who came to me and told me, you know what, Senator, please help us to get into TSC because we've got all these qualifications. I completed in 2008 and have not been employed. I tried because I thought it was just an issue of saying, this guy completed in 2008, please. I realized that that is not how things are done. The people who come with cash are considered ahead of the others. We are bringing corruption into recruitment of teachers. Now, how do you expect these teachers to be ethical? How do you expect them to focus on delivery? The first thing they're going to do is to get their money back. Get their money back, but already they're so compromised that you don't expect them to bring up morally upright children. That is a big problem, because we've got a generation of teachers who have joined the TSC under those circumstances, and until that generation fades out, we are in for a long ride.
Well, the story will continue to follow and see how it develops. But let's also talk about another story that's in the headlines today, and your party has come out to strongly criticize the government on the police reshuffle and the changes that have been made, especially as far as now former Deputy Inspector General of Police is concerned. And your argument is what?
There are two things here, Sophia. There's one from the gender perspective, that it would be proper that the Deputy Inspector General of Police be of the opposite gender. Of course, Nkaissery argues that Kitili has been appointed in an acting capacity, so we hope that when we get a substantive replacement, that replacement will satisfy the gender rule.
He also said, I heard him say that there isn't a woman qualified right now, that caliber, to fill that kind of a position
in the police service.
The police service at this point.
I think I would only agree with my brother halfway through. These are some of the issues that you find, some of us find very difficult to agree with my party. The truth is, I've worked with Madam Kaindi. She's one of the most incredible people who has ever held that position. She was the PPO Nyanza before the new dispensation.
Right.
She's worked thoroughly well, and everybody who has met her will tell you she has been somebody who has had an impeccable history record of performance. But then again, if Nkaissery says she's done 60 years and she needs to officially retire, I would only agree with my party that yes, let us follow the law and make sure, number one, that we follow the gender rule, and number two, let us then have proper due diligence being done, so that there's advertisement, the recruitment is done professionally, and obviously we must make sure that it's a lady. But just in case, because the Constitution doesn't say that if you cannot find a lady who's best suited and qualified to fit that position, then you have to keep looking for a lady until you go through 100 of them. I think for me, sometimes my party raises critical questions, yes. I mean, I would have made that statement by saying that, look, we hope that when the recruitment is going to take place, we have to follow the law to the letter and make sure that we follow the gender rule, and let us make sure that we get a woman who's going to be a performer, because there are many women in the police service who can do this job. But to insinuate and raise issues about Madam Kaindi's job appointment, which the way Kenya is, then you leave many people beginning to ask questions about what is ODM actually saying. And my argument is we really don't have much that we can say about ODM, because if you go the tribal line, the person who is coming in as the acting comes from Madam Kaindi's community. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't have found a woman who would have come in and be in an acting capacity. But I saw Kavuludi say that for him this is a temporary measure which is going to allow for them to recruit and make sure they get the best qualified person to take over that position.
You know, Sophia, as a member of the party, and my brother Richard also being a member of the party, he is now sounding like the government spokesman to a great extent. But
Senator, sometimes
what do you disagree with what he has
what my
said?
brother, no, I think he has said exactly what we have said as a party.
Yes.
Even though he has
so
put in the rejoinder from the government, and that's why
no,
I'm saying it sounds like the government.
It's not a rejoinder. What I'm saying is ODM, Senator, what I'm saying is this. There are certain things you can criticize the government about, and you can do it without looking like you're being frivolous and being petty on issues. And this is exactly what our issues have been with the party leadership and many members of the party. You know, you're my friend. We work together in the House. Yeah. I am not a government spokesman. All I am saying is we can do it better. The government has its own machinery.
Sophia, let me cite the two issues.
Yes, I just want to say to our viewers watching this, because these are two ODM people, that we had invited the TNA Secretary General Onyango Lo. He has not communicated as to why he's not here this morning. Hopefully he is okay whenever he is. Yes. But yes, so this was said to be a balanced discussion. Just so that we're clear.
We have balanced it fairly well. You know, we don't have to. There is the party position, and I think that the party has raised two fundamental issues: the issue of gender, and also the issue of whether the president can fire the deputy IG. Of course, there have been certain explanations that it was not firing, but it was an issue of retirement age. I think we as an opposition, because we know that the police force is an extremely important tool in reinforcing and the police service and ensuring the security of Kenyans. You know, Kenyans have never been as terrorized as they are. In as much as things have reduced right now, look at the numbers that have died as a result of terrorism in the last 2 or 3 years. It takes a multi-pronged approach to ensure that Kenyans are secured from terrorism. But we must make sure that the National Police Service, in terms of appointments, in terms of decisions that are made, they are made for the public good. Now, the story that many of us have not captured is that the police service is currently in the midst of a mega procurement process. And that procurement is set to modernize the police force. And it was even reported in the papers, I think 3-4 weeks ago, that procurement is bringing about certain wrangling within the police service. Grace Kaindi did not reach retirement age this week. That, in fact, the Kavuludi Commission had written earlier asking her to retire on the basis of age, and subsequently withdrew that requirement. It is only now that that has been effected. If it is an issue of retirement age, it is fine, because if that's what the law says, then it should happen. But the coincidence that this coming when there's a 2.5 billion or something like that procurement deal that is going on, which it is said that Kaindi was standing in the way of certain people, I think we need to get to the bottom of that.
So you're saying she's being kicked out to allow for some deals to happen?
Well, the official explanation is that she's gotten to the retirement age. We shall take that and give it the benefit of doubt. You know, Sophia, we cannot play around, we cannot trivialize whatever is going on in the police force.
Correct.
Because it affects everything else in this country. And just as I gave you the example of the Teacher Service Commission, a trained teacher joining the TSC, joining the police force is even worse, because the bribe at stake is close to 200,000 Kenya shillings. All
right, so you're arguing that they're being frivolous, that they're just arguing for argument's sake, that there's no merit to what's being said.
No, my argument is that, number one, I happen to be in the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee. As far as I'm concerned, Madam Kaindi never handles the procurement in the Department of the Police Service. It has never been the information that my brother is raising. I do not know whether Madam Kaindi, according to him, was standing in front of a procurement deal which somebody wanted passed. My argument is that procurement is basically done using the necessary government machinery and structures which exist, and I don't think that that was the reason. If that was the reason, my brother Kajwang is a senator, and it's a matter that he can bring to the floor of the House for it to be discussed and debated so that we can go to the bottom of it. But all I've been saying, and all I'm going to say, is that I want my party to be very strong in criticizing the government or in raising the outstanding issues which affect Kenyans. We need a strong police force. We need fairness and equity in recruitment within the police force to make sure that all communities in this country are included. We want the senior officers who are recruited into the police force to be individuals who've worked within the service, who have good, impeccable records, and who are going to make sure that the police performs the way it's expected to perform. But to bring in issues which some of us don't even think about, or some of us have never been informed that the reason why Madam Kaindi is actually being kicked out of the police force is because there was a procurement transaction and she's standing in front of it, therefore whoever that wants to make this money, sometimes makes some of us uncomfortable because we are saying, I don't have that evidence in front of me. I have not been informed by my party so that we take a common position. You just wake up one morning and somebody makes an announcement. Sometimes it looks like you're just making an announcement for the sake of it. And I would want us to have a very serious, a very thought-out structure on how we criticize the government and even give suggestions and solutions on how we solve some of the problems. Not necessarily waking up every day and saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong because the government is wrong. I think we can work with the government. We know our position and we should respect each other. The government makes serious blunders. We should criticize that and we should raise those issues. But when the government has done something substantive which is good for Kenyans, we should also say we think the government has done something good.
What do you say to that?
The opposition and our party has got spokespersons. And we've got a chairman, we've got a secretary general. Not all of us can always be available to comment on every issue that comes up. And I want my brother to appreciate that we have empowered the chairman and the secretary general to speak on behalf of the party. And the party also has certain structures of consultation. It will never be possible that the party must call all its members to agree on a position before it comments on it. So I just want to encourage my brother to allow the party officials whom we've entrusted to speak on behalf of the party to speak on behalf of the party. We might disagree with everything they say, but by the time an official of the party puts out a position, there is some research and there is some basis
He
to
argues
it.
it's not constructive. Some of it is just
Well,
argument for argument's
and
sake.
that's why I'm saying he does not have to agree with everything. I do not
Thank
have
you.
to, I do
I'm
not
glad, Senator,
have
you've
to-
corrected that position.
I do not have to agree with everything personally that the party says. But it is not for me to come on live TV and start discussing the conduct and affairs of the party and perceived disintegration within the party in this forum. We've got a parliamentary group meeting this coming weekend, and that is something that we can discuss at that point. But we must respect the people
Senator,
whom we've entrusted
Senator,
to lead the party. And we must also allow them the space to comment on our behalf, because it will never be possible that all party members can be called so that they agree on whether Kaindi was kicked out properly or not.
Senator, my position is very simple. It is true, the party needs to inform some of us, but tell me how many, or there are mechanisms and structures within the party on how we can raise issues affecting Kenyans and how we can even criticize
no,
the
Sophia, they're there.
Hold on,
Let him
Senator.
finish.
We were
Let
at
him
Manzoni 2 weeks ago. My
Hold on.
brother wasn't there.
Hold on,
And-
Senator.
And
Hold
that
on,
was
Senator.
the forum for discussion.
Senator, I will tell you, I wish you knew, if you could talk to your party top brass, you ask them whether they even sent a note inviting me to come to Manzoni. ODM has issues. I'm not saying it's a bad party. I'm just saying ODM has its own issues. But I want you to realize this. I will continue raising critical issues when Jubilee makes a mistake or when Jubilee is not coming out and performing the way we expect them to perform. I will raise those issues. And when ODM does the same, I will raise the same issues. It does not matter. According to me, yes, we need to have party policies. We need to agree on what to do with political parties. But at the end of it all, the fact remains that as a Kenyan, as a member who is representing our people, I have to raise those critical issues when it is necessary. And my position is we can do better. I'm not saying that ODM is not performing its role and it's not being responsible as an opposition. I am saying that we need to agree on what and how we are going to talk to Kenyans, because we are the government in waiting. And we need to behave and we need to raise issues which make Kenyans realize that we are actually a serious opposition.
Okay.
yeah,
You're not engaging everyone, are you?
No, Sophia, I think my brother is very right, because it is within his right and as a representative of the people of Kitutu Chache to speak despite a party line. But there's also the issue of party discipline. And the discipline that is and the discipline that is expected of leaders who have been entrusted to play the role that is playing. Parties have got structures, and I've just mentioned to you that we had an ODM retreat at Manzoni. My brother didn't show up.
I wasn't invited.
No,
you know, some of us
we went because it was in the papers. So today, if you read the papers, you know there will be a CORD retreat on 6th and 7th in Naivasha. So
everything
Richard,
that comes in the paper, then I read and assume it to be true.
Wanted Raila to bring an invitation to Kitutu.
It's not Raila. Send me an SMS. Send me an SMS. An SMS will be good enough.
So I think we should not portray ourselves as being more special than others. That we need special invitation to party events. A party is like a church. No one invites you to church every other Sunday. But you know you have to go to church because you know on Sundays, that is when people meet. So when we start saying that party activities need to be invited...
But you are not to be too happy with dissent.
No. I am just saying that the party has got structures and you do not have to be invited to go to those structures so that you can articulate your views.
With all
the
due
party
respect,
has got open doors, just like a church is open, and you know that on Sundays people go to church.
So
when you know that people are going to Manzoni as ODM legislators, you don't wait for Raila Odinga to bring an invitation.
I think you are
generated into ODM politics.
No. You're again trying to trivialize what I'm raising. I don't have to be called by Honorable former Prime Minister Raila. He's a man I respect. Raila doesn't have to call me to Manzoni. ODM has issues. These issues are substantive. Either the party decides that it's going to behave as an opposition party, is going to look for every individual member. We are not saying, some of us, that we are special. When a bill was, when a motion was brought, a bill was brought into the House discussing the retirement benefits of Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, and the rest. Sakaja got up and spoke on the floor of the House. He says, I disagree with this position. And he's the chairman of TNA. You never had anybody from TNA saying Sakaja is a mole for ODM. But when some of us are raising issues which we believe are philosophically and even morally critical in order for us to articulate those positions, then you find us being told, oh, you think you're special, therefore you think in fact you're going to do this, you are a mole, you're working with Jubilee. When I got in Kitutu Churches South constituency, my constituency is one of the constituencies that has been given the National Youth Service Program, which, including his brother's constituency, Karasarani, is also one of the constituencies that has got the National Youth Service Program. But because I come from Kitutu Churches South constituency, and because this is a government project, or for that matter, because Ken Obura has got a project running in Kisumu, then we are considered moles. We are saying, I can persuade the President of the Republic of Kenya, or whoever, that can give me a project which will come and support my constituents. That does not mean that I'm now saying, oh, I have left ODM and in fact I've crossed over to Jubilee and therefore I don't give a damn about Jubilee. No, I just think we need to be much more inclusive and much more tolerant to various points of view and accept. When Obama came the other day, that's what he said. He said you have to accept that people will continue criticizing you from within and from without. That makes democracy work.
Sophia, the evidence is all out there. TNA called some people to a disciplinary committee, and they are almost expelling my friend Senator Joy Gwendo from the party and from becoming a senator. If there is a party that is intolerant in this country, it is TNA. It is not ODM. I went through a by-election where people who were elected by ODM opposed my campaign, opposed my candidacy. We have not seen them dragged to a disciplinary committee. So there is absolutely nothing to justify what my brother is saying, that we are not tolerant. The intolerant parties are out there, parties like TNA and parties like URP that are busy expelling MCAs because they don't believe them. They don't believe in the URP slogan in the South Rift. ODM has not expelled anybody, and ODM still allows people like Mheshimiwa here to sleep around with NYS and sleep around with Jubilee because we know that they could be doing that in the individual capacity, but the people of Kitutu Churches still
let me tell Mheshimiwa what he may not know. The people who are doing business at the National Youth Service are ODM people. and let him not stop talking about
But,
that I'm sleeping. Listen,
these are Kenyans.
Hold on.
If you are in ODM, you are Kenyan.
When I'm telling him that the senior officials in ODM are the ones who've been supplying goods to National Youth Service, he now says they are Kenyans. When I am getting a project to go and help my people in the constituency, he now says I'm a mole. That nonsense I will not accept.
If you are in ODM, you are a Kenyan, and you've got a right to do business with a government entity.
Yeah, he's saying I'm sleeping. But ODM, senior officials in ODM are the ones who are trading in National Youth Service.
So is your brother
He's trying to insinuate that I have a private arrangement. There's no business I'm doing with NYS.
You see,
senior officials of ODM are the ones trading at NYS.
Richard, if you don't believe in ODM, it is all simple. Don't wait for a disciplinary committee to get you out.
Try and get a disciplinary committee.
When you are man enough,
I have not broken a law. I'm just telling you.
Let me allow me to
senior
gentlemen,
are the ones trading at National Youth Service.
When you are man enough,
and they are busy talking about how I need to be disciplined for getting a project in my constituency.
When you are man enough and you are dissatisfied with the party, you quit. You go back and seek a fresh mandate.
He does not want to quit.
No,
I have said I am man enough to raise issues which many of you cannot raise.
You don't stick in the house.
I have said
in the house.
Yes, when the house is burning, if you're man enough, you put out the fire from inside when you're man enough.
If you're man enough and you believe that you've got the mandate of the people,
I am man enough. I am man enough.
Quit the party.
That is why I am
join
raising issues
all right,
within
gentlemen,
the party.
But if you want to stick within the party, be nice, use the proper structures so that the issues
I'm
that
an
you
elected
have,
official like you, and I will take positions on what my voters want.
Member of Parliament, Senator.
I think this is hypocrisy, wanting to have your cake and eat it at the same time.
Talk about
you don't like the party,
are the people
and you want to.
Let me ask you,
ODM officials. What are you telling
so
me?
your point is
then you
that...
tell me they are Kenyans.
No.
Talk about hypocrisy.
Leave the party.
Gentlemen,
seek a fresh mandate.
ODM needs to be honest with itself. ODM must be honest with itself. That's my position.
No, just
Thank
quit
you.
it. Just leave it.
Why quit it? I'll fight from within.
No, you don't piss in the tent.
All right.
Get out and piss from outside.
All right, hold on. Senator, I'll ask you this. His point. You are saying he should quit the party if he's not happy. His argument is he's raising issues, but you do not want to hear those issues being raised.
Absolutely not. If there are issues that need to be discussed, and I've just given an example of a party retreat that we held, which was attended by a majority of MPs from ODM, and there were issues that were placed on the table, and there were hot issues that were placed on the table. Again, we are meeting in Naivasha on 6th and 7th as CORD to discuss these issues. Okay. That is the best forum to bring these issues and to discuss them. We still have other fora like parliamentary group meetings, which members of the National Assembly or members of Senate have got a right to demand that we've got a PG. But coming to discuss these issues on live television, it really smacks of indiscipline. I think there are proper structures through which political parties and political party leadership could deal with the issues that face the party. Right. Allow me to finish. Allow me to finish. There is no party that is perfect in this country, because multi-party democracy is not very old in this country. So there will be things that would be seen as party indiscipline. Those could just be issues of divergence of opinion. Divergence of opinion really should not bring us to a point where we are saying that members should get out. But when it gets to a point that a member feels so deeply, offended by the party, when a member feels that the party has veered so far from his own personal philosophy, the noble thing to do is to say, guys, I cannot be with you anymore. I've left you. And the only reason that many of us are afraid of taking that course is that it will subject us to a fresh election. And that is what many of us fear. So we'd rather stick there during the day and at night be somewhere else. If we feel so aggrieved, then let us just be confident.
Your last word.
My argument is very simple. The issue we are discussing is Madam Kaindi. I am free. If you ask me that question, I'll answer you. I'm open-minded. Number two, I find it actually repulsive, repugnant to find my colleagues saying that I sleep with Jubilee, and if I feel uncomfortable, I should leave the party. But I'm saying ODM senior officials who have been ranting and screaming how National Youth Service is a kaboot, a cartel of individuals who are siphoning government funds, have been the ones who actually have been doing business with this cartel they are talking about, when some of us are raising the issues that we want the project to help our people at the grassroots level, and that is what it has done. And this program, in fact, should be spread out the whole of this country. My same party is the one which is screaming at us, saying, why are you getting this project from the government? After all, you are just working in cahoot with the government, and therefore you are basically a mole. I am saying I will not accept that. My position is very simple. Senator Kajwang cannot tell me to leave ODM. If ODM decides me to leave the party, let them call me for disciplinary action. If they decide to kick me out of the party, I am man enough to go to the ground, and I'll come back as an MP.
All right, let's talk about the elections. And there was a bit of violence and lives that were lost, Senator. And there are those who linked the same to the elections that were going on. Of course, your party came out to completely delink and said these are two separate issues. One of the people, I think it was a blogger, wrote a commentary about ODM and linking it to violence, saying, look at how the manner in which the aborted elections at Kasarani happened, and several other links, and including this particular one. What do you say to people who have that perception of the party?
First of all, I would like to send my condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in Migori. And it is not to say they lost their lives because of ODM, because there are conflicting reports. Those people who are on the ground paint a picture of criminal activities, and that these people were victims of criminal acts. What we would want the police to do is to get to the bottom of the matter and investigate, rather than just issuing statements for consumption of primetime news, so that we can know that indeed these people, the proximate cause or the motive was elections, because people can take advantage of elections to settle personal scores. But then again, I remember the elections were going on in more counties than Migori. The peace and the success in the 6 other counties has not been highlighted. The coincidence that 2 people died when the elections were going on is what has been picked. I believe that ODM is a party that believes in the second, the D stands for democratic. ODM believes in that. And it is the only party that is conducting grassroots elections. And it has done that consistently. It has done it not with perfection. Not with perfection. I cannot say that we've done it 100% well, but at least we have tried. There are so many other parties in the political landscape in this country where you can't even tell who the official is. You find some parties, they change their chairman because the chairman has now been made a commissioner, NCAC or whatever. They go back to their headquarters and appoint another chairman. ODM is laying the structures that a serious party that expects to take over power is expected to. And please, I want to call upon Kenyans, let us also reflect on the success in the 6 other counties. Even Migori itself was a success. It is just that it was hotly contested. Okay. Remember, Migori has got a governor who is not from ODM and several MPs who are not from ODM. But the popularity and the intensity of the elections tell you that when it comes to the next elections, general elections, ODM stands a fair chance of seizing all the seats in Migori County.
Okay. Your thoughts on the same?
I think for me, again, it's a very unfortunate event in terms of Kenyan politics. I wouldn't even want to look at it from the ODM angle in terms of the elections were being conducted by the party. I think, again, Kenyans just need to think that we can verbally disagree, we can philosophically disagree, we can raise issues about elections or any other matter in this country, but for people to die because we are having primary elections within any area, whether it's in Malindi, whether it's in Kisii or in Migori, it's a very unfortunate thing. But again, this is what happens when you have young democracies. I mean, I think we are going through the normal scenario of what happens when there are conflicting interests in terms of leadership in Africa and in Kenya. The other point I would want to mention is that I think for me, ODM needs to get a subcommittee or get investigations done as a party so that we can have the truth of what exactly happened, getting to the bottom of it and making sure that some of these events, they don't look good to the party, they don't look good to the country. And I think we need to be talking to our members to say, wait, we can disagree, but let us disagree amicably and respectfully without killing each other. I mean, I'd rather not a single person died and somebody won a political seat than to have people die simply because somebody wants to be elected to be an MCA or a party leader or an MP or even a president.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last week, Thursday, the country was celebrating 5th anniversary of the Constitution. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts in as far as we talk about State of the Nation today, where you feel Kenya is at in as far as Constitution implementation.
Yes.
Is that being safeguarded, or are we seeing a lot of those freedoms, being trampled on?
Yeah, Sophia, I'm quite impressed with the progress of implementation. But you know, on Monday we were ranking it, and I personally ranked it at 6 out of 10 in terms of the progress that we have made. It is a reality that there are certain bills, close to 28 bills, that we should have enacted by the 27th of August this year, which we've not been able to enact. What is lost to many observers is that the bills that have not been enacted are some of the most critical bills or laws that this country needs. And when we are going into the last general election, there was all this doubt that will the Jubilee government have the guts to address the issues of land, because there was a feeling that some of the senior people within Jubilee had been involved in land, and they were owning large chunks of land.
Right.
Out of the 28 pieces of legislation that are still pending, the bulk of them are to do with land. You've got and also historical injustice. We saw the proposed maximum and minimum acreage land bill that came up to the public domain. You know, it was so ridiculous, and it just told you that the government has not sat down to think deeply and to think firmly on the land question, whether there's an answer. Yes, you know, remember the last election beside the ICC, the other question was the land question. And I remember Ruto dramatically saying that we've got an answer to the land question. 5 years after the enactment of the Constitution, the pending bills, most of them are to do with land. Parliament, National Assembly and Senate has been wrongly blamed for the delay in passing these bills. Bills originate, the initiation is from the Cabinet. Then the Cabinet takes them to CIC, Kenya Law Reform Commission, and the AG, and then they come up with a draft, and it is that draft that comes to the National Assembly and Senate. It is upon that point that we become relevant. In fact, we just see the tail end to it. So
there's no part in formulating of bills at all by the National Assembly?
No, in terms of initiation, government bills start from the Cabinet. And the fact that some of the bills that are pending have to do with land, it tells us that we might not have the guts. However, I would congratulate the nation as a whole that we have given life to devolution, which was one of the most significant proposals in this new constitution. But there is also the chapter 6 in our constitution on integrity, which has been watered down. I don't think that what the constitution states on integrity by all institutions, and it's not a blame to the executive only, even to the political parties and Kenya as a society. We would not be talking about corruption at the scale at which we are talking about it today if Kenyans adhered to chapter 6 when electing leaders or when conducting themselves. So I think there's still some 40% or 4 out of 10 that we still need to do. But the most critical thing that we must address is the question on land, because it can be very explosive when it gets to the next election.
All right, you rank it at what?
I would actually rank it close to what Senator has said. To a large extent, devolution has been wonderful to Kenyans. I think the removal of resources from the center to the periphery and to the grassroots has been a success, with a lot of challenges in terms of what the money has been doing and what the money hasn't done. There are questions, I think, which Kenyans are asking, which I think for me, we now need to start having a debate whether critically certain clauses or certain aspects of the Constitution are actually clauses which we need to leave as being sacred, or whether we need to start discussing them. For me, there are issues which are coming up. Issues of the wage bill. Are we having too many members of parliament? Did we have to bring the women representatives into the National Assembly, or should they remain at the county governments? Does the Senate have a big role to play in terms of responsibility? Their functions are basically two: impeaching the president and participation in the revenue allocation bill. Is that substantive enough for them to continue remaining as a Senate, or should we give the Senate more responsibility so that it becomes the upper house and then the National Assembly becomes the lower house? I think these are issues that Kenyans now need to debate legitimately without any innuendos or without any doubts. Like Senator has said, the land question I think is a legitimate question. We need to make sure we agree on the way forward on what we are going to do with the issues of land and all that. The issues of the women gender issue, gender parity issue, very sensitive. I can assure you, many members of parliament do not want to touch that issue of gender. Many feel that women should fight for their own. We don't have to give them affirmative action for them to catch up. So these are very critical issues. But all in all, Kenya is an example of what an African state should actually do in terms of all the wars in Africa, all the critical issues that have brought governments down and all that. Is all about resources. And once we are able to devolve resources from the center and make sure that these resources are taken to its owners, who are the Wanjikus and the Morals of this world, to make sure that they enjoy the benefits of independence, then I believe Kenyans will actually appreciate this constitution much more.
All right.
Has it got many failures? Yes, they have. The health sector. There are many questions which people are asking, but I think we are moving steadily towards the right direction, and I believe that Parliament, with this extension of 1 year, will be courageous enough to make sure that we pass all those bills. I hope they will be passed and they will be good bills, because you can pass bills which are actually bad bills. But because the judiciary is very vigilant now, I believe that even if we passed a bad bill in the House, the judiciary will make sure they correct the anomaly.
Okay. Yes. Before we wrap up, very quickly, we've had a very deep, heated conversation about your party, ODM. Of course, we don't have our invited guest on the other side, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on what's happening with Jubilee and as far as the ICC cases are concerned. Now, URP is saying that they're lacking the amount of passion, or the kind of passion that was seen when defending President Uhuru Kenyatta, the clamor for the same from the entire coalition when it comes to the Deputy President's case. Any comment on that?
Sophia, I could disagree and I could discredit the Deputy President on many fronts, especially his activities as a property developer. But on the ICC question, it is not fair, it is not right that William Ruto and Sang are the ones who are going to take the collective blame of the nation for what happened in 2008. It is not fair.
What do you mean? When you say take a blame, you appear to suggest that they've already been...
Well, he's still in the dock, and so there could be two outcomes. He will be acquitted or he will be sentenced. So, you have to look at it from that context. It is true that one side of the Jubilee coalition does not seem to show as much zeal and, as you called it, passion in intervening and lobbying at those international levels for the case against the Deputy President to take a different turn. When you admit recanted evidence into a case such as this, remember, in the case of the President, there was also recanted evidence that was not admitted. What are you saying? That if you admit it, if you rejected it in the case of the President, and now you're admitting it in the case of the Deputy President, are we using two different measures? Remember, William Ruto is at The Hague for activities that is accused of committing when he was within ODM. And as a member of ODM, I want to say it, and I want to say it very, very clearly. The impression has been given that it is ODM that took Ruto to The Hague. I think that has been the wrong impression. This is a time for us now to come out and speak out and to tell William Ruto that remember where your friends are. All these things arose from your position. All these arose from your position when you are in ODM. And if you look at the lives that were lost, we have always been his friend, because he's the one who's gone to The Hague on behalf of that side of the coalition that was called ODM then. And that has never changed. And that we know. In fact, sometimes when we fight and we seem to be throwing a lot of ammunition towards this direction, it sends out the wrong message, because at the end of the day, he's at The Hague because of what he's accused of doing as an ODM member. And yet it is the
So
state...
it's the court you're saying that's being unfair. So who are you saying is being unfair here?
No, there are two levels.
Yeah,
here.
because those
there
matters
is
are
the
canvassed in
political,
court.
there is the political lobbying.
Okay.
And Ruto himself had to take a jet without following procurement rules to go and lobby other states, other African states, to come to the rescue of our two leaders who were
But
before...
that didn't work.
No, but it put pressure. The AU took a position. The African Union closed ranks and took a position. It might not have influenced the court, but it had significant political connotations.
Okay.
It is those initiatives that will lead to significant political connotations at the African or at the global scale that are lacking. And it gives rise to some belief that there could be some people in the ruling coalition who will not be too unhappy if Ruto found himself behind locked behind bars at The Hague. I think that would be unfortunate to leave this thing to Ruto alone.
So you'd think they should express a bit more passion and zeal? Yes, sir.
I think to a large extent this matter from the last parliament was mishandled all the way from the time when people started saying don't be vague, let's go to The Hague. I think my brother knows that the ICC statutes took over. The process went on. According to me, I don't think I can sit here and pontificate as to whether I know people who want Ruto to go to jail or not. What I know is the case is at The Hague. My colleague members of parliament from the Rift Valley have to realize the case is still on. If you discuss a matter that is in front of a court, in public, in some baraza or in some church, it becomes sub judice. The president of the court has stated the same. He has said you really do not have to engage and discuss publicly the scenario of this case. My argument is what happened in 2007 was unfortunate for this country. Should we have truth and justice and reconciliation, or should we have peace and reconciliation? I think the two positions, according to me, they're individuals who were violated, people died. We must look, as Kenyans, we must look at the position on what is going to happen to them. Do we come out and compensate those families and make sure they close this matter so that then we can come home and discuss as what we are going to do in terms of forgiving each other. Okay. I think the President and Ruto so far have come in to a large extent saying let us work together, let us make sure that we solve the problem which historically has been a Kenyan problem. I think for me, we just need to be a little bit more careful how we handle The Hague. ICC would allow Ruto to come home and have him not get jailed. But at the same time, I think we also need to look at what should be done to the victims, and we have to be honest about what we do with the victims so that everybody, both sides, can have a closure. I do not know whether political interference in terms of making noise in Kenya about who is going to fix who and who is going to handle the transition after Ruto goes to jail or doesn't go to jail is going to help the case.
All right, we're going to end it there, gentlemen, and it's good shake hands. There's a little crack there.
No, we are friends. We are friends. We are friends. It is purely philosophical.
At the end of the day, Sophia,
we are friends.
We are like children belonging to the same mother. When we go out to play, we disagree, but we come back to the same house. In fact, when I tell my brother to defect, he cannot defect because you cannot defect from your mother.
All right, that is Moses Kajwang, Senator Homa Bay County, as well as Richard Onyonka, who is Kitutu Chache Member of Parliament, Kitutu Chache South Member of Parliament. Thank you so much for being with us, and that is the State of the Nation. Thank you for watching, and all of your feedback. We'll be sampling it towards the end of the show. Stay with us. When we return, we have Fitness Thursday. I hope you're ready to sweat it out after serious conversations. Let's work it out. Coming up next.